Hello, Airsoft Nation. Dragon once again. A little bit later in the afternoon here. Uh, I kind of wanted to talk about something, discussion, get some feedback from players off this subject. A lot of times I'll do things like this and I'll post it on Facebook or respond to Facebook, and what results is I normally leave as big, long discussion, paragraphical things that uh, lots of guys have commented back on, like, well, I'm not reading that encyclopedia. I'm moving on to the next thing, or you're throwing too much information at us. Can't absorb it all. And that's my bad. It's kind of like one of my character flaws, I should say. Whenever I get on a subject, I try to cover as much as possible. Even talking in these videos, the way my brain works is I'm saying one thing, I'm thinking about four other things at once. And I get distracted. I get, a little bit off subject and have to loop back around to it, or, it gets lost somewhere in that process. But anyways, in this video here, I kind of have an idea. I have a plan to run an event that is post-apocalyptic themed, a survival event. And I did have a date set for it. I was going to plan it out, release it, and go. And subsequently, what wound up is that another team in Arkansas that, is a good team, respectable team, they had an op already posted for those dates. I just wasn't aware of it. And then I decided to go ahead and take the steps and cancel my event on that date. And now I'm to the point where it's like I'm in planning stages for it still, and going through that process of locking down the logistics and things of that nature. And I have reached a point where I'm kind of like second guessing myself, I should say, on some of these things, on what would be fun. My original plan is to take this survival games type of scenario and have all the players be individually responsible for themselves. No teams, no factions. It's like you're an individual. The ultimate goal is to survive, to be number one. On the surface, that really seems like a lot of fun. At least it seems appealing to me. Because too many airsoft events out there are, entirely team-based, squad-based, or group-based, faction-based of some sort. Your wins, successes are depending on those with you and who's playing with you and whatnot. And I thought something a little bit different that challenges people on an individual level would be profound and kind of innovative in a larger scale event. Not just, a trigger day where you have 3 or 4 people going against each other or something like that. But on a larger scale, a little bit different, using different tactics and having to play smart and more, outthink and be more crafty than the other players to, pull off a victory. But I'm not sure that would actually appeal to everybody. And then I got to thinking about what, like, wow, if, I had 150 people out here playing in an event, and they're all individually responsible for themselves. How do I start them all off in the AO? I mean, I pretty much would have to say, we'll just go out there and find a spot and hope for the best, I guess, to get everybody started at once. Or should I start people in groups? Or, I haven't really hammered out the way that would go. But I wanted to ask y'all, the players, are you interested in a post-apocalyptic themed event where you're basically portraying a survivor, and the whole idea behind it is that you're in it for yourself. You're looking out for number one. And they wouldn't mean that you couldn't cut deals and you couldn't, make alliances, whether they were temporary or what. But, when it's all said and done with, though, you're still looking out for number one, and, you want to win. So it keeps you from being, like, in that realm, have that security of having people to lean on, because either they're going to turn on you at some point or you will have to turn on them at some point. I kind of got the idea of a cross between, like, the DayZ game, which a lot of times boils down to that kind of situation, except for in DayZ, you know, they got the infected or the Zeds or whatever that are a constant overhead threat, whether they technically are a threat or not, you know, in the game or not, is that's a little bit up to your point of perception, I should say. But and then like taking like the Hunger Games type of style, whereas like all those participants in that were supposed to be in it for themselves. They weren't supposed to really, you know, be buddies. You know, there's only supposed to be one winner, and you know, of course the you know, movie portrayed, you know, well, exception to that rule at some point in time there, but I wasn't planning on that. So I wanted kind of something that didn't have zombies in it or Zeds or infected, and at the same time have, you know, a decent survival element to it. And I was considering on the aspect of out in the AO, there would be placed places, containers, and just general outdoor stashes and things in the buildings, in the woods. Some of it may be hidden, some of it may be not. You know, finding like some food and water that would be needed. That would be your resources that you are going to go get and try to hoard up. And occasionally, at various points in times throughout the event day, you know, me as admin either go around and, you know, count up how much said player has and base it off of like what they have and how many points that would be for that round, or bring it out and, you know, show it physically and do the same thing. Have a point-based system based on what you found, because you would have contaminated stuff or toxic stuff and clean stuff, and clean stuff would be rarer. You know, you'd have a lot more of this other stuff. I mean, the resources would be worth more than having nothing, but the resources aren't going to be high scoring because most of it's not going to be good stuff. You know, I mean, you can eat it and you can drink it, but you're probably going to get sick and die from it later on. But the clean stuff would be kind of a little bit more rare. It'd be mixed in with all this other stuff out there, and so there would be a measure of skill and tactics and luck out there. Plenty of opportunities for combat and shooting. Being on an individual basis and knowing that you have to get this stuff in order. You have to have something in order to score the place and go on and win. Kind of like eliminates the probability, like in most places where you have those few guys that are just hanging out in one area, camping in a bunker area, whatever. They're sitting there talking about playing Call of Duty, or you know what they did at school, or you know whose girlfriend hates who, you know, whatever it is that they're just there hanging out. You know, if they don't participate, then they're not going to get anywhere, you know, on the point score system, and have no chance of, you know, winning. And they can't rely on their faction that they're on to do all the work for them, and then they still, you know, pull off a win. So that was kind of my basis of ideas on that. And I generally wanted to know how you players felt about, you know, something of that magnitude or something there. Because here during the, you know, in the wintertime on the AO here, post-apocalyptic would be a little appealing because it'll be a little colder or cooler. The trees, most of the trees and stuff are going to be bare. The undergrowth is kind of going away. It looks more fitting to an apocalyptic setting. The structures that I have in mind to use for it would, you know, definitely be apocalyptic themed or apocalyptic like what you would find, you know, out in where civilization is pretty much ground to a halt. You have these pockets of civilizations and survivors and stuff trying to make some sort of civilization, but they're, you know, they're dying off. But so I just thought it would kind of be a neat idea, a good idea. I generally want to know like what people's thoughts are on it. Like I said, I was wanting to run it like an individual on an individual by individual basis. That's because that is way different than most events, whether they're themed or just general milsim go. I wanted to challenge each player individually. You know, I want them to have to think about things. I want them to be, you know, crafty or smart. You know, and also too with the post-apocalyptic theme, I like a little bit of player creativity. I like when players get into things and you know, think about it previously. They, you know, slap together some sort of apocalyptic loadout. They even may come up with like things they might say during the event, or you know, a whole number of things that are on the creative side that kind of helps me keep excited and go on with a you know, certain aspects of the event itself, because I see the enthusiasm and creativity from players. It just makes me feel like, you know, well, I'm glad that I'm providing something now for players, because that just made my day. That just, you know, help ensure that, you know, there are players out there that enjoy this kind of thing. So I love it when players get creative and get into stuff, and you know, I even kind of like a little bit of light trash talking, you know, across the Facebook and forums, and you know, I love seeing you guys' memes or memes or however you want to pronounce them. They're, you know, most of them are normally, you know, fairly funny, and it's a really great thing to be able to be in a position where that you're a leader, and be able to provide airsoft for other players. It's an honorable position, I should say, even if relatively a thankless one in many aspects, and the, you know, of the hobby of the whole was a hamburger, and you're constantly always biting off more than you can chew responsibility wise. That's the hard aspect of doing stuff. The planning and the setting up and things, you know, that's not such a hard aspect, but you always never know what the future holds. You don't know how many players you're going to get. You don't know what styles of play that players enjoy more. So you don't want to like do something and it be wasted effort on that front, and then at the same time you don't want to like not do something, because not doing anything at all is worse than doing something and then doing it and it not being, you know, great. So that's kind of where I stand on that, and I just, you know, guys, hey, let me know what you think about that. What you think about that idea? I can put it on the books. It'll probably be after a little bit later date, maybe a week or two after the ARA event down there at Darcy. You know, past December 3rd. My original date was December 3rd because that's what I had looked at the calendar. It was absolutely free. I put it in the paperwork for, and that. Then later in the aftermath, after I already got everything approved, then I noticed they already had their op, and they'd already had it, you know, posted and being advertised. And then I turned around and did what I thought was the right thing and said, okay, so I'm canceling my event because I don't want to overlap any, you know, major events in the state of Arkansas through Arkansas combat simulations. And you know, it didn't sit well with me, you know, just to carry on and, you know, make an apology video or whatever. No, I said, no, honor, integrity are everything in the sport, so I'm going to do the honorable thing. I'm going to pull out, and they had already had the date set and locked down and everything like that. I'm not going to be a level of contention or source of competition in this hobby ever at all. So that's where I stand, and like I said, I just like to get some, you know, major feedback. You know, what would you like to see? What would you like to do? I'm wide open here. I have 164 some odd acres to utilize, and you know, so anything is possible. So just let me know. Well, it's all from Dragon right now, and keep it honorable, keep it safe, keep it fun, guys. All right, catch y'all later.